Hello guys, and welcome back to yet another video. Today we are taking an early look at the 2025-2026 Championship lineup. Now before we get into this video, it's not really my prediction, it's not really the bookies' prediction, it's just me trying to give you a rough idea for what we could possibly expect in the Championship next season. Once we have the 24 teams confirmed by this time next week, we'll start getting into the early predictions, but this is just a rough guide of maybe what to expect next season in the second tier of English football. Guys, be sure to share your thoughts down in the comments, especially if your team is going to be involved. I'm already excited for the next season to start, and we're still in May. The new season doesn't start till August. Guys, be sure to support the video as well. Let's go for 2,000 likes. Hit that thumbs up button if you like your football, and if you haven't already subscribed yet, we are now this close to 100k, which would be amazing, so be sure to hit the subscribe button. Let's try and do it before Thursday, which is my birthday. It'd be a nice early birthday present. Make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get into this. I'm sorry to be predictable, but here I've said autos with a question mark. I wouldn't be surprised if we see these sort of teams up at the top again. It's what history tells us will happen, and it is mainly down to parachute payments, of course, and stronger budgets and stronger squads. So you see Leicester City, Ipswich, Southampton and Sheffield United or Sunderland, whichever one doesn't get promoted. Now, we'll come on to that in a second. First of all, the three that are coming down, I think they're just going to be very strong. I mean, you can make an argument that, Southampton, a little bit unstable. Leicester City, a possible points deduction. What happens to Ipswich Town if they lose McKenna? Okay, these are valid questions, and yeah, I'm not saying these three are going to be perfect. Maybe one of these three teams might have a bad season, but I'm not really a gambling man, but if I was, and someone said to me, who do you think right now is going to be in the top two next season? I would say two from these three or two from these four are going to take up those top two. I mean, we are seeing on a regular basis now, to get into that top two, to get automatically promoted, you need 90 plus points, maybe 92, maybe 93 next season. And for a team without parachute payments, it's a difficult feat, isn't it? So Leicester City, first of all, I mean, it's very early on. We're still not finished in the Premier League season for the 24-25 season. What do we know? I don't think we know with certainty who the manager's going to be. Obviously, Van Nistelrooy is there at the minute. They are on a decent little run of form, even though they've just been relegated. Jamie Vardy's going out the door. It feels like an end of an era. Maybe that's a good thing, though, for Leicester. Maybe they need a real freshening up over the summer. And obviously, a big talking point is going to be the points deduction. Now, it is very easy for some people to get carried away and say, oh yeah, Leicester City are going to get 15, 20 points deducted. I think they might get a deduction, but will it be a big one? I'm not sure. If it's anything less than 10 points, I still suspect Leicester City will be right at the top. I mean, Sheffield United had a 2-point deduction. I know it's only 2 points, but did it really matter in the grand scheme of things, separating Sheffield United from the other teams like Sunderland and Coventry? Not really. They were quite far ahead, weren't they? So yes, there are a couple of hurdles that Leicester City need to get through in the summer and to get their preparations right for the start of next season, but I would expect them to be right up there next season. Do share your thoughts if you think otherwise. Ipswich Town up next. Now, they are slightly different to Leicester and Southampton, because we have seen Leicester and Southampton come down and go up and then down and probably up again. With Ipswich, they came up through League One. Was the rise too sharp? Was it always going to be a case that they wouldn't be able to sustain it and they were always going to come back down? Maybe, but you know, there's been those separate arguments that we've had that the Premier League's just too hard for any club to survive this season if you come up from the Championship. That said, what do I expect coming into next season? Well, I do think, as I said earlier, holding on to McKenna is crucial because of what he's built there. They will lose players. Delap in particular, I think, goes out the door, but as I've said before, when I saw their second team come to Coventry in the FA Cup, they wiped the floor with us. They were ruthless. It was a Championship super team, really, wasn't it? Smodics, Philogene, and they've got a lot of good players that were in the Championship a year or two ago, and so long as they keep most of them, which you think they would, and they're going to make additions, they're going to be right up there. They've got a lot of quality. The only thing is, with Ipswich, they've had all this lovely momentum flying through the divisions. You'd imagine it needs to be a pretty sharp start to next season to get that going again. What happens if Ipswich lose their first 2 games at the start of next season? Do a few alarm bells go off? I'm not saying they're going to do a Luton and get double relegated, because Luton is a rare exception where they've spent quite a bit of money on the new stadium, but it could be a case that Ipswich might miss out on the top 2 and make the playoffs instead, but I don't know. I fancy them to be right up there. Southampton, the other team, I mean, like I say, difficult at the minute because we don't know who the manager's going to be. But last time they came down, they appointed Russell Martin and it worked. They didn't get in the top 2, but they navigated the playoffs very well. And how many points did they get in the end? Was it about 85? If they do that again, they're probably finishing top 4, top 3 again. Can they get in the top 2 this time? Possibly. We do expect player sales, of course. They've got a few players that are probably okay to stay in the Premier League, but I think otherwise, once again, you look at the squad depth there, it's too good for the Championship. Maybe not good enough for the Premier League, but seems to be too good for the Championship in my opinion. And then the other one, Sheffield United or Sunderland. I would make an argument that Sheffield United would be more strong in the Championship next season than Sunderland, possibly. That's not me saying that the playoff final is now more important to Sunderland necessarily. I mean, it is in a way, because I mean, just imagine what that would do for Sunderland. But then the Sheffield United fans don't want to go into another season in the Championship. This would be their second year of parachute payments, and I believe it would be their last one because they only spent one season in the Premier League the time before. So that playoff final is huge, and I would say whoever doesn't win it should be strong going into next season. In particular, Sheffield United. I know they might lose Gustavo Hamer, but they've got a lot of good quality there, haven't they? And if Chris Wilder stays, which we imagine he would, you can imagine them scoring another 90 points or so, and there'd be no deduction next season. For Sunderland, maybe you could make an argument that they're going to have to sell a lot of players and it could be a bit of a rebuild in the summer. But what I like about Sunderland is how many good young players they've got, and that surely means they're only going to get better. You might slightly disagree with that argument, and that might be fair enough. Maybe Sunderland could have a weird season if they don't go up where they fall into the middle again, but maybe they'll take a step back and then 2 steps forwards again. I don't know. I'd imagine they're going to be pushing for the Premier League within a year or 2 again if they don't go up this time. So there's my favourites for the automatics. Like I say, I'm sorry, it's boring, it's predictable, but you've got to go off the history and the data, which tells us the relegated teams tend to do very well. Let's move on to the next one. I've got a lot of teams here. Could they? What do I mean by could they? Could they break it up a little bit? You've got the 2 teams that have lost in the playoff semi-finals, Coventry City and Bristol City. You've got the 2 that have come up from League One in the automatics, and then you've got a couple of the playoff chasers from last season. I would imagine the playoffs will be comprising of a couple of these teams. Not sure which ones right now, but I fancy 1 or 2 of these to get into that top 6, and maybe if one of these 8 teams have a really good season, could they compete for the top 2? I mean, we saw Sunderland come from nowhere, we saw Ipswich Town come from nowhere. Who knows? Let's start with Coventry City, my team. What we can take away from the last 3 years in the Championship now is Coventry, along with Sunderland, have been the best of the rest. We have been the best team outside of parachute payments over the last 3 years. Within 3 years, we've finished in the playoffs twice. 5th place, 9th place, 5th place. It's pretty good. Sunderland have done the same, 6th, mid-table, and then 4th. So you would imagine, based on that, Coventry City pushing for the playoffs again? I think so. I mean, a lot of Coventry fans like to say to me, do you know what, if we get off to a good start to the season, we could compete for the top 2. I think there's some valid argument in that. We could certainly be more secure in the playoffs, but I just think it's so difficult to compete for that top 2. You've got to be really, really flawless. With Coventry, though, of course, you've got Lampard, and there will be a bit of squad churn in the summer. Doug King, 99% of the Coventry fans are behind what he's doing. He seems to be backing Lampard. Let's see. Early days under Lampard still, but I'd like to think we can at least compete for the playoffs again. Bristol City, can they do the same? Once again, a bit like Coventry, a safe pair of hands here with the manager now, Manning. What a job he did last season. And I don't suspect much change in the squad. No disrespect to Bristol City, but it wasn't like they were absolutely flawless this season and their team's going to be picked apart. They timed things well, they played the conditions well, they got into a playoffs when there was a low bar, they seized that opportunity, and the fan base is growing. You look at the crowds at Ashton Gate towards the end of last season. If they could keep that going into the start of next season, that could be really crucial in another push for the playoffs. So maybe Bristol City, at least a top 10 finish again. And then here come Birmingham and Wrexham. Now, not often do we go into a new season and we're looking at the teams that have come up from League One possibly competing for playoffs and promotion to the Premier League straight away. But I don't know with these two. First thing I do want to say is we need to distinguish that they are different, and they did compete differently last season. Birmingham City were significantly the best team in League One last season, and the best team in League One ever, let's be honest. Now I know there will be people behind their screens watching this saying, well, if you spend loads of money, you're going to do it, and that's a fair argument. They did spend a lot of money, but they also went and smashed the points record, so, you know, what else do you want them to do? If they're going to spend money, they've delivered upon it, and I quite liked the style of play as well. And look at the camaraderie around Birmingham City. You know, if they're going to be backed again by these owners and the fans are all on board, they could be a real force next season, couldn't they? So, I don't know, I'm keeping an eye on Birmingham City. We said for a few years Birmingham City were going round the plug hole and finally they got sucked in. This time round, I'd imagine they're going to be a lot stronger and away from that relegation battle. Wrexham. Now, Wrexham, as I say, maybe not on the same level as Birmingham last season. Remember, 111 points, 92 points, but how good were Wrexham, eh? They were brilliant. And wow, this is so interesting seeing Wrexham in the same division as my team, Coventry, as your West Broms and your Middlesbroughs. And can they compete and be in the playoff race with these sort of teams as well? Possibly. Feels a difficult one to predict in the minute. Now, I get there's going to be some people saying Wrexham are not going to do well in the Championship. This is the step up that they can't match up to. They haven't got the backing. They're not good enough. They haven't got the quality. I think if you're saying that, you might be underestimating Wrexham. However, there are people on the other side of that argument saying Wrexham will do very well. They'll smash it. I think you're underestimating the Championship if you're looking at it like that. I don't know, if I'm being honest. I would imagine if I was to do a bit of a prediction now, maybe mid-table, maybe top half. But they just keep smashing it. And there is a real winner's mentality that they've flown through the National League. They've flown through League Two. They've flown through League One. Could they? I don't know. This is a very difficult league. A lot of money from the Premier League trickles down to this level. But I don't know. I like how Wrexham just keep rising to the challenge. I'm curious to see how they'll do. Wrexham fans, share your thoughts. Middlesbrough and West Brom. These two kind of like brothers in arm, fighting for the playoffs. Both missed out last season. Both got the potential to get in there. In particular, Middlesbrough. At the minute, Carrick's still there. We said that could be a talking point in the summer, so we'll see. Yeah, good players there. Obviously, Latte was a loss. Doak, I enjoyed, but he went as well. Wasn't too impressed with the players that came in, like Iheanacho, and it just felt like their season fizzled out. But there's still potential there, isn't there? But the pressure will be on Carrick to get them off to a good start if he is there next season, because size of club as well, they've got to be pushing for the playoffs. Same as West Brom. Obviously, right now, not 100% sure what the manager situation's looking like, but they were there or thereabouts last season, and we saw the capability of them on the final day when they had nothing to play for. Luton had everything to play for. They had good form. West Brom smashed them to pieces. West Brom are definitely going to be in and around that playoff conversation again, aren't they? And then Blackburn and Millwall. Speaking about brothers in arms, these two just keep missing out on the playoffs, don't they? They both changed the manager, and that's making me a little bit interested for maybe an outside shout for the playoffs for these two next season. Valerie and Ismail, when he first came in, it didn't look good, did it? And then they really got going, and they could have actually got into the playoffs. If they'd have just held on at Sheffield United, they would have made it. So maybe they'll be sniffing again, who knows? Millwall, Alex Neil goes in, does a great job, just timed it a little bit too late. So maybe, yeah, they're not the favourites to make the playoffs, but they're certainly in that conversation if they get off to a good start. Let's move on to the teams that were sort of mid-table last season. I've said please make it interesting. Swansea, Norwich, QPR, Pompey. I'm going to include Pompey because they finished, was it 16th last season? I think you could say they just snuck into the middle of the table, didn't they? Swansea, I mean, what a great run towards the end of last season. Sheehan obviously did very well. I think they had a win percentage, get this right, 54%. Now, if you do that over a 46-game season, you're making the playoffs. I know it's not a massive sample size, but I don't know. Can they make it interesting? Can they carry on from where they left off? Norwich City. Norwich, I mean, it seems weird to see them mid-table. Last season obviously was a transition. Now that we look back on it, Thorpe came in. It felt for a time that they were maybe going to make the playoffs. They were right up there and then really fell away, didn't they? So I suppose we have to wait and see what happens there. And it's the same with QPR, obviously, with Cifuentes at the minute. Not too sure what's going to happen right now. Very streaky last season. Had the potential to be very good, but then flatlined at times. And Portsmouth, now that Portsmouth have survived their first season, I think they could be a real force next season. I'm going to say it. There's 4 teams here. One of these 4, maybe 2 of these 4, get into the top 9 or 10 next season. I'm in particular looking at Norwich because they're always up there in the Championship. But maybe Portsmouth as a surprise package. Maybe Swansea. Let me know your thoughts. Let's not have these 4 in mid-table. Let's have them pushing up the table. These clubs I've got cause to be optimistic for, maybe. These ones maybe not so much. What is going on? Watford, Sheffield Wednesday, Hull City. We're looking at the managers here. Now, Watford got rid of Tom Cleverley. I'm not a fan of that decision. It could work out to be the biggest masterstroke ever from the Watford board, but we will see. Now, the new manager coming in is Paulo Pezzolano. I don't know anything about him. I don't. He's from Uruguay. He's managed a few South American clubs. I suppose we try and find out a bit more about him during the summer. Like I say, it's sort of like unpredictable. It's uncharted territory. Would it surprise me if Watford have a really bad season and they're in the bottom 6? No. But would it also surprise me if they were in the playoff conversation? No, I don't know anymore with Watford. Honestly, that's the weird thing. Sheffield Wednesday, a little bit more cut and dry. What happens to Danny Roll? Because he's there at the minute. I worry if he's not there. Now, yes, I get that they could bring in a decent replacement if he does go, but I don't know. He's been very good at Sheffield Wednesday. Infamously, great escape a couple of years ago. Last season, flirted with the playoffs, and it's just the chaos behind the scenes that's very off-putting. Now, I like Sheffield Wednesday. I really do. I mean, if I was to reorganise the Football League and I got to choose who goes in the top league, I've said it so many times, I want Sheffield Wednesday, I want Hillsborough in the top flight of English football. I love these old traditional football clubs. But how they're being run, not great. And it's a shame, isn't it? Because as I say, potential, fan base, good players and a very good manager. If someone could just give them a bit more backing, then who knows? But yeah, it's Chansiri that puts me off a little bit, and therefore there is some cause for concern. Hull City, it's like history repeating itself. This time last year, Rosignol goes out the door. This time around, Sellers is pushed out the door. Do I think he did a good job? Yeah, he kept them up. But was that all they wanted him for? Is it, you know, what's the thinking behind the owner at Hull City? Okay, he's ambitious. We like ambition, but there's ambition and just being a bit crazy, isn't there? But we will see. As I say, would it surprise me if Hull City were in the bottom 6 next season? No. Would it surprise me if they bring in a brilliant manager and competing for the top 6? No, I don't know. They've got potential, I guess, so you never know. I'll come on to these 3 again later. Let's just wrap up the bottom end of the table. Up against it. I want to start with Derby and Stoke and say, first of all, I think these teams are more likely to push on than be in a relegation battle next season. Now, the thing is, if Birmingham and Wrexham come up and do well, who goes down? Because, you know, you usually, at the start of the season, look at the teams coming up from League One and say, well, they might be relegated. If Birmingham and Wrexham stay up, who goes down? Derby and Stoke were flirting with it last season. Both changed managers. Robbins, decent at Stoke. Eustace, very good at Derby. So you'd imagine, with a bit of backing and maybe some good signings, if they get off to a good start next season, they can steer clear of trouble. And these are 2 big clubs. They're both in the Premier League not too long ago. They do have the potential to push in the top 12. But like I say, who's up against it? We've got to look at the survivors from last season. Preston, another one. I don't know. Do we need a big rebuild at Preston in the summer? Maybe. I like Paul Heckingbottom, and at times I liked them last season. Good FA Cup run, and on the final day they showed that they've got what it takes to survive in this division. But it was that run up until the final day that made a lot of people worried, and then a lot of people thought they might actually go down. Was it that they thought they'd already got enough points to survive and they took their foot off the gas? Maybe. Was it the FA Cup run took it out of them? Maybe. But they can't afford to get off to a slow start next season, because I do expect a fierce battle down at the bottom. But at the same time, would I be surprised if Preston get back into their spiritual home of 11th or 12th place? Not really. Oxford United. Oxford did so well last season. Proved a lot of people wrong, including myself, and I'm very happy for them that they've survived. I would imagine we go into next season and the objective is very similar. Get over the line again. If they push on, brilliant. Is that the expectation? Maybe. I mean, you've got to try and be ambitious, but it's going to be difficult. Like I say, the teams coming up make it look like a very fierce battle down at the bottom. Do Oxford have what it takes to survive? Well, yes, they proved it last season. Gary Rowett as well. I'm a big fan of him. Very solid, safe pair of hands. And right now they've just signed a new contract. They've just extended their deal at the Kassam Stadium. So lots of reasons to be positive and optimistic going into next season for Oxford United. If they get off to a good start again, then it makes things interesting for the relegation battle. And then finally, Charlton or Leyton Orient. One of these two are going to win the League One player final. Both incredible stories, by the way. Charlton, of course, Premier League team back in the day. Leyton Orient, they got to the League One player final back in 2014. They lost it. They've been down to the National League and back since, and there's been a lot of turbulence there, so it'd be great to see them come up. I would say, from my own perspective, I'm very happy that we're guaranteed another London club in the Championship, because the only London clubs we've had for the last couple of years have been QPR and Millwall. So I've already been to Charlton. I like it. I'd happily go again to the Valley, but I'd like to go to Brisbane Road. I've never been to Leyton Orient. Whoever comes up, they're going to be up against it though. They've not got massive budgets. Yes, they've got good players that could definitely give them a chance of staying up, but there's going to be a big drive on recruitment, and they will probably be tipped to go down, whoever wins that League One player final. So let's see. Still early days. We don't know who's won that game yet. So finally then, my overview. What I'm going to take away from today is that I think the top two will be gobbled up by the relegated teams. And I know some people in the comments are going to be like, oh, Matt, you might get a surprise. I know, we might. But, you know, do we base everything on surprises? Do we say that outliers are the norm? Not really. I mean, it can happen. Maybe expect one or two surprises. But let's bear in mind another thing here. If we try and take our bias away from this, at the start of every season, you don't get many football fans going into it saying, we're going to be relegated, I'm not looking forward to it. 99% of football fans head into the new season optimistic and thinking we're going to do better than last season. But the reality is only 6 teams are going to get into that top 6. 75% of us are not going to be in the top 6. So that is the reality. We can all be optimistic and say, well, my club's good, my club's the best. But, you know, 3 teams do have to go down as well. I'm going to say maybe 1 or 2 surprises in the playoffs. Whether that's Birmingham City, maybe that's someone coming up from the middle, like maybe Derby County, imagine that. I would imagine we might get 1 or 2 surprises in there. The new teams from League One look strong, in particular Birmingham and Wrexham. I'm going to say it right now, I'd be astonished if either of them go down. I'm going to make that prediction. I don't think either of them go down. I think maybe we're looking at the table for those two. Here's a fun one. One of Hull, Watford or Sheffield Wednesday will go down or finish in the top 6. Yeah, I know, it doesn't make any sense, but I just think the chaos at those 3 means that one of them might have a random spike in any direction. Maybe Hull get off to a really good start, maybe they make the playoffs. Maybe Watford do terribly and they go down, I don't know. Let's have a bit of fun with that one. One of those 3 are going to have a weird season. Bottom 3 will be 1 new team, so maybe someone who's just come up, 1 mid-tabler and 1 survivor. So possibly right now, I think who wins the League One player final, maybe they get relegated. Maybe we have 1 team that just survived last season going down, maybe Preston, maybe Oxford, and maybe 1 team that finished in mid-table might go down. Who knows, like a Swansea or something. I'm not picking on Swansea in particular, but that's just an example. You look at the 3 that went down last season, 1 of them was a new team. In fact, it was Luton, obviously. They came down from the Premier League. I don't think we'll get that again. But 1 of them was a team that had just survived the season before, which was Plymouth, and 1 of them was a mid-table team from the season before, Cardiff City. Anyway, that is it. I will save my early predictions until we know the complete lineup this time next week. Share your thoughts down in the comments, guys. Like I say, just a bit of fun. I have quite enjoyed having an early look at the teams that are going to be involved next season. Let me know your thoughts, guys. This is a community where we're all entitled to our own opinions, as long as you're not too crazy with them. Get your thoughts down below. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe. As I say, we're this close to 100k. Go on, hit the subscribe button. I will see you for more Championship content very soon. Take care, everyone. Peace out.